If you have topics you would like to have us discuss on the Aging Well podcast, please click on the links in the episode description to send us a text or record your message or comments. We'd love to hear from you and how we can help you age well. If you benefit from the Aging Well podcast and would like to support the content financially, please click on the Support the Show link or support our affiliates and advertisers. Welcome to the Aging Well podcast. I'm Jeff Armstrong here with Corbin Bruton. In this and the episodes that follow, we will share candid discussions on aging and hear from the experts. We are here to inform and encourage as we experience, aging. In this episode, the Aging Well podcast travels to West Salem, Oregon and West Coast Strength for their 12-week transformation challenge. Dr. Armstrong joins former student and owner of West Coast Strength for a Q&A about diet, supplements, strength training versus hypertrophy training, and of course, aging well.
Hold on.
Okay, we're good.
We're safe.
Yeah.
All right, guys, welcome. So just to give a little bit of preface, we started doing this transformation challenge for the gym 4 years ago. We started doing it in 2020. Hell of a year to start doing a challenge. It started off, I think we had 150 some people. It was really cool. And we wanted that to be a little bit different than like a basic corporate challenge. And so one of the ways to do that was to start to feature our friends and highlight things in our seminars and the coaching staff. And so that was really where this came about. And so that was the first year that we had done it. So this will be 20. And we skip. So we're on is this 4?
This is the fourth year.
Yeah.
Is this the fourth year I've been here?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I know.
I was thinking it was the third year.
So,
Time flies.
or we skipped a year and it is the third, but that's either way. We've done this a little bit before. And so I wanted for the folks that came for it to not be repetitive on the stuff that we did originally. And so the very first one was basically, we wanted to tell people, hey, here's how many calories are in carbs and fats and protein. And we kind of broke it down and it was really good and realized that it had a lot of science to it. And so each year we've realized that the Q&A format of it really ends up being the best because you guys get to ask questions and we can give mostly him an expert response on that. So this is going to sort of be a podcast style thing. And technically we are on a podcast. So that also is very fitting. So I've got a format of questions. I think are going to cover a lot of things for you guys in a short period of time. In that, if there's a specific question that we're on and you guys want a quick answer on it, raise your hand. Or if you don't understand something, let us clarify it. At the end, we'll do an open Q&A. And so if there's something specific you want, that's the time for that. Background, I'm the gym owner. Mostly, and my background, it's funny, they call the degree applied exercise science. That's what I've done, applied exercise science. So I've been a coach forever. Mostly bodybuilders and strength athletes is what I've spent my career working with. I went to Western Oregon University, which is a great exercise science program. It's really broad. And so the cool thing about that is you learn a lot about different things and it doesn't get you really hyper educated on one facet of exercise science and not knowing anything about the other. And when I went there, I had Professor Armstrong as one of my guys. And so to bring him here today is really cool. It's kind of full circle of life. Jeff, tell us about you. What do you do? What have you done? How can they get to know you in 30 seconds?
30 seconds. Yeah. Wow. I've been at Eastern Michigan now this is my 16th year.
Eastern Michigan?
I started at Eastern Michigan. I was actually there for 6 years and Hope College for 4 years and then came out here about 16 years ago. So I've been at Western Oregon University for the last 16 years. So I actually spent probably most of my career now here at Western Oregon. So I teach exercise science. I'm kind of the utility guy there. I teach everything from kind of the keystone class, which is physiology of exercise. And I teach exercise testing and prescription, which kind of gets them into the clinical, gets them into knowing how to just kind of test what their performance levels would be and, set some goals and minimal programming. It's not the best programming because we follow ACSM guidelines, which I generally will tell them, okay, you're going to learn this in this class and I'm going to throw it all out the window when you get into some more advanced programming because everybody's different and everybody's requirements are a bit different. And I also teach a pathophysiology and exercise class. So I'm on the kind of really medical side of it. And then I go over into the advanced programming side. So I get to talk about all the cool different things that we can do with sports performance and fitness performance and those types of things. And then there's a few other classes in there as well. Also do a podcast, which is what this is going to air on. This is the Aging Well podcast. We've been doing it for a little over 2 years now. And so this will be the third episode that we've done here.
Yep.
And it's just geared at trying to get people being much more proactive in the aging process rather than reactive. There's too many people, and you are not of that population since you are at a gym and you're participating in this now. You're taking that positive approach early on to try and do the things that are going to keep you healthy longer. But too many people wait until they get into the latter years of life and suddenly, now I'm getting decrepit, I'm getting out of shape, I'm way out of shape, and I need to get healthy. And it's somewhat too late. I mean, it's never too late to
That's
start.
what I was going to ask. Is it too late by that point?
It's never, ever too late. I mean, I always talk, I personal trained in the past. I could go through my whole career, my resume. I'm 60 years old, so that would take way too long. So I'm going to just shut up on that. But I did have one guy who was 84 when he came to me as a personal trainer, never lifted weights in his life, decided he had seen this. At the time, it was a new study at Tufts University looking at resistance training in the elderly. And one of the things that they found was the elderly in this senior home that were doing the resistance training exercise were far less dependent upon their assistant walking devices, their canes and walkers and those types of things. And he walked with a cane and decided he wanted to get rid of the cane. And so he shows up, he's got the horn rimmed glasses, really stereotypical old 84-year-old. He had Bermuda shorts on, a polo style short.
What are Bermuda shorts? Like
Bermuda shorts are like the old man shorts, kind of the plaid shorts, just standard, shorts. But he had dark socks and loafers on. And he was there to start training. And I worked with him for several months, and I ended up leaving the area, took another job. But in that time, he was able to get to where he was just kind of carrying that walker. But he had never lifted a weight in his life. Now, had he started 50 years earlier, he probably would have been in much better shape at 80 years old. And I have my own personal goal, and we'll probably talk about that a little bit as we get into this. But my goal is to age proportionally better than everybody else, in my age group. You don't have to do much to do that. You just have to kind of maintain a reasonable level of fitness. And so where you all are at now, even though you might think right now I'm not in good shape, that's why I'm doing this 12-week transformation. If you maintain where you're at for the next 30, 40 years, you're going to be kicking ass. So it's just a matter of doing it. And so that's kind of where I'm at. And that's kind of where we've gotten to this point in doing this interview every year.
Have you noticed, and this is for me, I kind of make the joke that, when do you start getting into lifting or training? I mean, a lot of folks, there's a certain amount of people just sort of drop off. And everybody's working out. Like for me, it was all the guys who were working out in college, 22, 3, 4, 5. And then when I was married, I did. And so each 5 to 10 year period, and you might find yourselves in there. You and I, we had a discussion later, right? You were talking about being out of lifting for a while. And so that happens to so many people. What's cool is get back on, so that's a great thing. But what he said, you don't really have to do a whole lot to be ahead of the curve, because simply staying engaged with training. I mean, at times where I feel pretty out of shape, I'm okay because I still train 5 days a week, and I've been doing it for about 20 years. So out of shape is pretty relative, and I think I'm doing okay for most 30, 40-year-old 290-pound men. That's a niche category, but I think I'm okay on a peer level. So again, the biggest thing is really going to be consistency. I'm obviously a weights guy. I love training and lifting, and that's why I fell in love with fitness. And I was, I'm still traumatized from trying to run a mile in high school. And so aerobic stuff and typical fitness was not my thing. Never was a fitness guy. I like being strong. I got recognized for being strong, and then I realized I could get in shape with it. So that kind of sets us up for the first question, because him and I are in different places, but we also have a lot of overlap. He coaches wrestling. His foundation is weights and strength. My first broaching the subject of how to program was in your exercise testing and prescription class. I did the bro science, so that's how I used to train. When I got in class with him, I realized there were some principles to that. So first question for you: what's your philosophy on training? What do you think?
I discussed my epigenetics test with True Diagnostic co-founder Hannah Wendt in episode 162. Epigenetic testing measures baseline and changes in your pace of aging, giving you the power to steer your anti-aging or health and wellness journey in the right direction. I learned that I am aging well. Click on the affiliate link in the episode description, use the promo code AGEWELL, and receive a 12% discount on your epigenetics test and monitor your pace of aging. I mean, it's pretty broad. On one hand, very focused on the principle of individuality, where we tend to ignore that. There are four basic principles of adaptation that we teach. We have the overload principle, which you probably heard again, a little bit more than you're accustomed to in order for the body system to adapt. You have progressively, which is the progressive principle. You have the principle of specificity, specific adaptations to imposed demands. So if you want to get stronger, you've got to do things to make you stronger. And then you have the principle of reversibility, which we all hate. Stop doing it and revert back to a lower level condition. And the principle of individuality is basically everybody's different, everybody's going to respond differently to the same training. So even if Alex and I were to do the same program, you would see very different results from that same training, depending on who it works better for, or who initiated it. Because chances are the trainer to initiate the training that they think is going to work best for you, and it may not. Because if it works for them, it might not necessarily work for you. And so I take that principle, but I also look at trying to optimize your time, doing the most that you can do with the available time. So in classes, I often will talk about the opportunity cost. We all have 24 hours in a day. If you're a professional athlete, there's 24 hours maybe dedicated to your training and performance. But for most of us, we're trying to carve out as much time as we can. So what you do has got to be the most effective that you can do with the limited amount of time that you have. So it's basically, if I were going to probably give a sentence to my personal philosophy on training, is kind of bullshit. You just do the stuff that is going to be most effective for what the goals are that you need to be doing. Don't waste a lot of time doing things that aren't getting to where you're going or aren't as effective.
Well, I think if I had to throw this in, so I mentioned, aerobic capacity, I was never a guy that ran the mile wells. How do you think I feel about soccer? I hate soccer. Why do I hate soccer? Because I'm shitty at soccer. And so I like football. I like football because I'm good at football. So you'll notice that every coach and each person that you work with, Tate's a bodybuilder. What do you think his training style, how he helps people lose weight or get in shape or get strong? There's going to be a bias towards that. And so that's the cool thing is that I think finding either coaches or space, the cool thing about fitness is now that everything's accessible, everything's on YouTube, everything's there, you have information. It used to not be like that. Even 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I would show up to a college and women just didn't really lift weights. That wasn't the thing. Whereas now, I would say maybe there's more women lifting weights than there are men. It's such a mainstream thing. So for me, training philosophy, I'm a weights guy. I can get cardio in better shape with weights. I can get stronger, bone density, prevent aging. So, if I'm going to tell anybody to do one thing forever, other than move, stay active in movement, and that's let's say the cardio base, it's lifting. Lift forever as long as you can. For me, most of my injuries have come from lifting professionally before, so I'm a little beat up now. So the adjusted for me is, even though I want to train heavy, even though that's what I want to be doing, I have modified, but it's still the same thing. I still come in and I literally train 90 to 120 minutes. So if I'm going to tell somebody to do kind of one thing I'd love to see them maintain, it would be that. It would be the strength side of things. That's probably the hardest thing to come back from. Would you say once you you lose strength or you put that down? Because the cardio, we could do preseason conditioning now, a couple weeks to get them dialed in for pro sports. So that's a little adaptive. I feel like the strength thing is where, it's an investment, you kind of a savings account. You probably want to put more time there, or at least not let it go. If you don't use it, you lose it.
Yeah, and I think with strength, the whole idea of periodization is important too. You're doing different things across the year to bring you to that kind of refinement point where your performance needs to be the best. And so strength, and I got my first degree in exercise science, exercise physiology in 1986. I was a master's degree at West Salem University. And the majority of the people that I went to school with were going to go into either corporate fitness or cardiac rehabilitation. There was not really an emphasis on strength. And the field of exercise physiology in the 80s was focused on cardiovascular, cardio, heart health, and basically strength and conditioning kind of grew out of PE and coaching. And fortunately, in the years since, it's gotten a little bit more into the science side of it. But I had to overcome a lot of that teaching was like cardio first. And I had over the years, and particularly now that I've been aging in college, as I get into my 60s, it's like I'm recognizing that importance of strength over cardio. And, cardio, I can maintain my cardio very easily. Once you kind of establish a basic healthy level of cardio, you have like all heard of Tabata, and walk on tangents about Tabata. But 12 to 15 minutes, fairly intense, high intensity interval training a few times a week is going to be more than enough to even improve your VO2 max, your cardiovascular endurance. Whereas strength training, we don't do that, and we lose that strength, or we focus on cardio, all we do is run or do some other kind of cardio. Your cardiovascular exercise doesn't favor you having a bigger body because you have to carry more to do that work. And so cardio tends to offset or tends to negate some of the strength training benefits. And you can get other ways of managing all that, and you should if you're trying to do both. But minimum amount of cardio, we can keep our heart healthy, our circulation healthy. But if we start losing our strength and our muscle mass, which we will do as we age and we're active, you can't do as much. You can't do as much, you don't do as much, you don't do as much, your cardio goes down, your muscles go down. So hit the weights first. Yeah. And so the best way to keep that, maintenance level as best as possible at good age is to focus most on strength. And again, not having to spend a lot of time on that. And we have some questions coming up that will direct to that a little bit more. But keep it basic, keep it simple, keep it heavy. And you're going to get stronger. The stronger you are, you're getting some cardio benefit just doing that exercise, but it's going to allow you to do what cardio you do. So I think we're on the same page really.
Something I was thinking about, you talk about like philosophy of training. If you follow a program, whether it's from a magazine, online, like an influencer or anything, like if you follow a program, like raise your hand. If you don't follow a program, don't raise your hand. All right, follow a program. Okay, so for the rest of the guys that don't follow the program, how do you decide what to train? Like, is it based on feel or recovery? Or like, for me, like I have a program. My program is more philosophy of training. Like I have a format of certain muscle groups I hit on certain days. Like this is my chest day. It's supposed to be 2 to 3 days for my back day and my leg day and stuff like that. But anybody who's worried about that doesn't follow a program, how do you decide what to do in the gym? Anybody?
I follow the format, basically, and my main list will stay the same. I'll just go with what I feel, whatever feels good on the secondary stuff.
I do a version of that, and it's what doesn't hurt today. Like, what doesn't hurt today will determine if I will be deadlifting, shoulder pressing a barbell or dumbbell or stuff like that. So just to kind of go on the philosophy thing, and I might erase one of my questions and like overlap on it a little bit. For those of you guys that follow a program, does the program have you do the same thing every week? I can't remember who raised your name on that set of program. Does it have you do the same thing?
I work in block.
So like 2 weeks or 4 weeks?
Or 6 weeks.
Does it stay completely the same for 4 to 6 weeks? Or is there some flexibility in there?
Some flexibility in there, but the main list stay the same.
Yeah.
And then the goal is usually progressively overloading it for that 4 to 6 weeks and then changing out possibly the move or some of the accessory movements as well.
So as we get into this, because one of my questions coming up is basically for each sheet, what's an important thing to be doing? I'll talk about sort of like, and I'm thinking of like, Mike, you trained with me where it was like, hey, show up, we're training heavy today. Everybody pushing that was like, I was programming for you. And then you've gone in and trained on your own with the track coaches and training with your dad. So I'll talk a little bit about, if nothing else, and you're going to have a training, you're not going to have a training program, at least like a better philosophy on it. Do you want to do the one nutrition, or should we start going into like what's appropriate for each injury?
We're going to do that since you opened it up.
Yeah, we kind of find into that. So I broke this down into like, some of you guys are parents, and this is applicable to like, what should my kid be doing in this age range? Some of us, like, I'm getting into like closer to the middle-aged adults, so like I'm adapting my stuff a little bit. So I broke it down into this: children up to 12, teenagers 13 to 19, people 20, young adults 20 to 39, middle-aged adults 40 to 59, and seniors 60 plus. Now, I knew as soon as I wrote that, you were going to see 50. Now, there's so many more breakdowns of that, and like I know professional racquetball players who are in their 80s who are in incredible shape and they're could run circles around us. So don't take that as like a bad thing. So in each of those, kind of quickly tell us, what do you think somebody should be doing in each block?
But
There's not many under 12, so this is not.
But taking advantage of the senior piece just kind of underscores that it's really difficult to discuss exercise as it relates to specific ages. It's not like as soon as I hit 60, now my training has to change. You know, if you approach 40, something on 40th birthday, you got to sit down and totally reprogram. It's much more about kind of your training age, your current training status, and what your goals are. Where the age comes into it is, you know, you look at children up to 12 years old. And I'll have some, we ask the question, when should a kid start resistance training? You know, people say resistance training it's not necessarily the same weight training, but it's applying resistance to the body. And my response, they'll start, 9, 10, 12, 15. And they'll throw all these ages out as soon as you pop out of the womb. Really, as soon as the kid is born, the more that they can begin to use the muscles and the bones in their body, the better they're going to develop, the overall better opportunity they're going to have to perform later in life.
Can I just tell you that my friend's baby, one of my best friends just had a baby, and he told me that I think the kid's like X weeks old, he's crawling, and they attached a tire to him.
A literal tire?
Like a small tire, maybe a dog tire, like something draggable proportionate to a baby.
So lining up tires and you start progressing up the traffic.
Yeah, and he's a coach. He's a football coach. His wife's educator, so like they're smart, but they're like, maybe this will help. So maybe we don't need to put a tire on them, but like we can start kind of like, they're pretty durable, made of rubber, right? You can start doing stuff with them pretty young.
Yeah, kids are ready to start doing things as early as birth. What the body wants to grow. The muscles are doing developing, and the bones are developing, and the more stress we put on the bone, the more it's going to get stronger and form itself. And so this whole idea that we had in the past that kids shouldn't lift weights because it's going to stunt growth and all that other bullshit is that bullshit. I use bullshit a lot exercise because there's so much time. One of the comment earlier when we were talking about all of the stuff that's available on the internet. There's a flux in the mind. There's information, but there's also really bad information. You have to be really a good consumer of the internet. But children up to 12, as you start kind of going from just doing more body weight, basic resistant type of exercise. I love the idea that you just get kids out to the playground and playing on what we call it. I was a kid, monkey bars. In fact, the monkey bars were, back when I was a kid, they were over asphalt. Playgrounds in school, and now you never see that. But we see parents that the kids get on the monkey bars, so there's play apparatus, there's a park, and they're like underneath, kind of very cautious. And it's like, just let the kid climb. Let them use their bodies and use their strength and develop a little bit. And then as they get older, as they approach, probably about the age of 10 to 12 is where they might start getting a little more interested in resistance training. And when they show the interest, then let them start doing it. Coach Dexter at Western Oregon. I love to see some of her clips on Facebook and stuff. Her daughter Reba, I forget how old Reba is now, but she's pretty young. She gets right in there. She starts picking up dumbbells and weights and starts moving. And the main thing at that age is technique. Not letting the kid go berserk in terms of trying to make them stronger. Just focus on getting the best technique, teaching them how to squat, full range of motion, teaching them different exercise movements with a barbell, with machines, so they learn how to do it, they have an interest in it, they maintain that interest, and then eventually they're going to be in a position to start adding weight to that without getting hurt. I would say, if a kid gets hurt lifting weights, it's because they're a stupid coach. Or they've done something. Because if you do it right, they're not going to be hurt. And then so we get into teenagers. Now the teenagers, again, you still want to be focusing on technique. That's the time when you start pushing a little bit more. Coaches need to get kids in the weight room. I coach strength conditioning at high school. That's sort of the state tournament right now. So we're going to go to second grade. State championships and things like that. What else today? I don't get enough of them in the way of life. We have a very dedicated program. Season ended, it ends today. We're going to take 2 weeks off, and then we start back in the training program. I have really 53 weeks out of the year, or 49 weeks.
You got an extra week out of the year?
Yeah, big shit. But take 2 weeks off post-season and then recover and not doing anything. And we were forced by USAA to take a moratorium. We can't do anything, contact the coaches. But now we have a program throughout summer, into the school year, summer, fall, into the season, and we can limit it as much as possible. But again, it's focused on technique, focus on things that are going to build them towards best performance in the season. You have a lot of other coaches that they see how they schedule the different occasion, or it rains outside, so they pull inside. Wait, but that's not helping these kids. They're not learning proper technique. They're not getting anything about them to develop. So I'm just more focused on getting them to maintain interest in it, begin to progress, learn the technique, master that technique, and working towards sports performance. So hypertrophy, you have strength, you have power, all those things we have to do. So in those team years, we're probably working on developing, if possible, better overall performance parameters that help them to succeed in sports. And if they're lucky enough to start adults and continue to college, then they're prepped to go on to play sports. They have a strength and conditioning coach that can further develop them as the athlete with the techniques that they've already learned. They're not having to relearn them.
So I was going to ask, is there like, and it's a little bit of the love us a little bit, is there a place where we peak? Like personally, I peaked at like somewhere around 26, 27, 28. Like as far as like strength, I got like big boy strength by the time I was 25. Then an injury, I couldn't hold on to it. After injuries, muscularity kind of peaked like pre-30. And then I hold and maintain it really well right now. By no means declining, but like that was where it was like maxed out. Also, everything was high octane. All I did was train. All I did was like, it was like that was the career. Is there any place where we really peak at all?
I think there's a potential peak. I think very few people actually achieve that peak. And most elite athletes going to Olympic parameters really hit that peak level. And those are the ones that they're not going to be able to maintain that for their life. They have to kind of pick, percentage of that they want to maintain. Like for yourself, having built level of strength that you built, you just can't maintain that forever. Did you peak? It's hard to say because you don't know. Your training was tweaked a little bit better. You didn't have some of the injuries that you had. You had a couple injuries.
Yeah. My back, shoulders, rotator cuff. Jen, I'm going to pick on you for 3 seconds. How old are you right now?
Me?
Yeah, that's a really bad question.
It's a good thing.
She's almost 27.
44.
Okay, so I've known you or seen you in the fitness space for a while. So let's say 10 years ago at 34. I know, like, would you say you're in better shape, stronger, fitter, everything at 44 than 34?
Since I had never been into a gym until I was 34?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
Definitely.
So I've had that happen a lot with people. Some of my best clients and athletes are masters bodybuilders and folks that didn't ever really get into training until, let's say, they were in their 40s. And the cool thing about that is, like my joints are not thrashed, but somewhere in between thrashed and fresh is probably where I'm at. Is that everybody that ever trained and didn't get into this, and let's say you didn't have a foundation of sports or you weren't a lifter, I started lifting when I was 14, doing this like over 20 years. And those people seem to have better longevity because like they have like at least 10 good years of them right now. Like I have a guy that didn't start until 40, he's 45 right now, and this is, hands down the best shape. And he'll probably peak before we have to make adjustments and start doing things differently, probably late 40s. Maybe 50s. I have a program. He's going to come in tonight. He's almost 60 years old. 45-year-old. He didn't really get super serious until his 40s. I guess the cool thing about that is like we're all on a little bit of a different trajectory based on when we started. I am 34 and I am like very much toning it down, trying to do a bunch of corrective exercise and rehab. And I stretch and I do cardio before I work out because if I don't do it before, if I don't eat my vegetables first, I'm not going to do the cardio afterwards. And so you can see that it's kind of all become a pretty big moving target. And then I have, friends like my buddy who I told you his baby's dragging the tire. He's blown out both knees like 4 or 5 times. Remember Casey Connor?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Lifter guy, hit a 500-pound squat by the time he was 16 years old, weighed 165 pounds. Just, strong forever. Dad was a pro lifter, brother was a lifter, and he's like, 2 plates. We joke, we text each other like, hey, I hit 3 plates in. What did you get? I got 2 plates. So I think what's cool to see is that the progression of like aging, you're 60 and you can still like trap bar like 500 pounds or something ridiculous. Like,
Not quite 500 pounds.
say yes, just say yes.
I wanted to get there, but considering that I didn't do it in my 20s and 30s, I feel pretty good to do it. Yeah, as you say, it depends where you are in the trajectory. If you're like most of us that, maybe just kind of kept basic fitness, but we're continuing to progress, or still we may never really peak. I don't expect that 20 years from now I'm going to be adding more pounds to my deadlift. My exertion is
Not with that attitude. Come on. You'll only be 80. We'll be on our 24th seminar at that point.
But I love working with the athletes. I cannot lift every one of them. Unfortunately, we don't have a big strong athlete. Makes it a little easy. But I don't want they're back wanting and they go and drop down the safety bars, and I'll zercher it up on the back for them. I can zercher, at least like the last cycle that I went heavy, I was 355 for 5 reps.
Yeah.
And most people don't like zercher and
So we're going on like the health, the training, and like what you should be doing at each age. Is there is it based on genetics? Is it an environment thing? If I have like crap genetics, like am I screwed or can I still do it?
I don't know if I probably used the quote when we were in my classes that I put a lot faster and do as long as you really exercise physiology. You search the literature and stuff and find all kinds of stuff. There's tests that are named after him. He used to say, what do we know the athlete? There's a genetic. The potential is to be getting
You guys don't like that?
He was in here like 2 days ago.
Yeah. You see, so coming in the morning, you see a guy who's about 5'6", 5'5", little round bellies. This dude. And that's my dad. And so, sure. My mom was like 11 or 300 pounds of that. So it's like, there's just a profile there.
I just genes in there. There's a certain component of the genetic, and there's going to be what we do with and there's a whole thing. Some get really kind of excited about learning more is that, which is your grandparents actually had. So that's a lot of factors that contribute. A lot of people use genetics and experience. I do sometimes. I have my dad's legs, but I train them better than he did. I still always have stinky calves no matter what I do, but that doesn't mean I can't do the best that I can with the genes that I have and get stronger and do some other stuff. So yeah, there's a genetic component. How do we, when do we start lifting and when do we start exercising in a particular parameter? What's our nutrition like? Getting enough sleep, doing all the other things in life that can help us to recover from the exercise. That makes a difference too.
So my experience kind of on the what do I think about genetics? I'm a broad-shouldered, like 6'4" dude that's fast. The reason I'm kind of just getting more like I had a genetic influence there. After spending enough time with athletes, I've had some guys that were so incredibly talented. The guy 6-7 years ago, the dude just lifted weights, just a little bit of body water really well, and getting something wise, any amount of food, and just blew. Laziest I've ever trained one pro car first try, and just didn't think it couldn't happen at professional level. So that's an example of it. I've had other people come in and I just really want to remind them that, hey, your body doesn't really want to do this in creation genetics. Something like bodybuilding and strength training would do at the elite level and elite, yeah, you kind of have to be touched and then you can bust your knees to get there. But I wanted to say that other than a elite level, like something like LeBron style and like, you know, that upper echelon, the genetic factor is like, I don't know, it's not much. I've had some really gritty, incredibly hardworking people that shit genetics that were really, really successful, especially in like, you know, anything like the gym that's just really more about consistency than anything. So as a coach, I appreciate getting a really gifted guy that I've had too many times, whether it's on a football field or a weight room doing a guy that's gifted who just doesn't really work hard and apply himself. And then I've had plenty of times where somebody came in and like just busted their ass and like, oh, this is about work and getting it done. And some people's work translates and they get faster results. You know, so that's like kind of like my, as a coach, motivation thing. If genetics isn't your thing, like it's fine. Like again, like most of my good athletes are not like the talented ones, as much as they're just hard workers and they understand the process, which they do it consistently. It's in reason. And I think you're going to grow your religion, all you love to live, and that's cool. And that was what kind of got me into this was, you know, I like to run, I love to live. So, training, when I'm in pushing, it's not like I didn't enjoy it. Though I wish the progress was at times a little faster, like more rewarding.
I mean, I hate lifting, the exercise.
Really?
I think they now that like the person is hitting himself in the head and do like more to ask why are you doing this? Because it feels so good and stop. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's it. Like, I'm most shitty when I don't work out. Like, it's not like, I mean, just not, it's the brushing your teeth thing. Like, you know, brushing has a lot of values. If you don't do it, you know, you're kind of screwed. You can't just not brush your teeth. Like, and so I think I've been training too long at this point, but just the option is like, I can't not train. Think about your dad. Your dad likes working out. If you don't know about his dad, he's my first bodybuilder. He's a stud of a guy. He's in his 50s. He's really, really fit. And I know, just like me, we're in here bitching. But, you know, kind of addicted to training and what it feels like. You know, you just can't handle what it feels like not to train. You know, once you've done it long enough, it just becomes something that's just not an option to stop doing it. Which is why I love, you know, selling strength.
And you brought up the coach, the athlete that has genetics.
Rooted.
Yeah, I mean, Rudy's a great example. He's got that, well, it's not quite the example what I was going after, because he had that inner drive.
Yeah.
He worked his own butt off, and the coach, you know, for the most part, didn't want to even touch it because it's like he's not going to play anymore. But when you have coaches that taught how, well, I got so many, you know, athletes in the NFL, and this, well, how good were they when they got to do it? And how much work did they do? And how much of it is what you really did for them?
Yeah.
And I'm more impressed with the coaches that can take somebody who really has those weak or poor genetics and just get the best out of them. And I think that's an important thing for anybody kind of listening to this. To think about when you're getting, you know, a coach or a trainer or something like that, it's not what it, you know, how do they look genetically? Because if they're gifted, they might just be able to barbell to the gym and somebody big. I hate this before. You know, they're just really high responders, and they might know they're like all of them. But if you got a trainer who can take somebody who really has minimal genetics and develop them, they got something.
Yeah, I mean, I've gotten a lot of credit. I've had some pretty gifted like pro bodybuilders that if you saw them, like you think that I'm great at my job. And I feel like I'm pretty good at my job. But there's some of these folks that like, I'm telling you, the second they stepped away from them, they just started growing muscle. And some of my best work has been people that kind of in the shadows and just busted their butt. And eventually, 5, even 10 years later, like they turn into something. As a coach, I think I'm like that a little bit more. So, and I think the program, like, you're on a program, like, see if it works well for like, I would be better, be daring for people, but it works well for people that like maybe gifted. Philosophically, programs should apply to elite people that they do for. I think, again, the influence culture when you see some, they say they do X and that's why they're beautiful. I'm like, bullshit, maybe. Bullshit meter. All right, so to get into this next one, I feel like a hot topic. We've got a supplement shop over there. You've seen TRT and hormone clinics pop up left and right. I
I don't know, there's a lot around just supplements in general, whether that's illicit, peptides, creatine. Is there anything that you'd like to see that you either feel is essential or like you're trying to kind of steer people away from? Like Ozempic is a big thing that I see like everywhere right now, the new like, peptide drug for losing weight. That's a fun one. So, any of you want to share supplements wise?
I'm really pretty basic when it comes to supplements. And I said I have kind of my 5 growing towards 6 supplements that are on the list that I think are well established in the literature and effective and worth almost anybody taking. And on top is creatine. I think creatine,
But women aren't supposed to take creatine, right? Okay.
Honestly,
That's a joke. That's what he says. That way it applies to women that are afraid of
I do
creatine.
think they might want to consider the dosing a little bit more, not necessarily the same dosing as a male. Like a student who is currently a bodybuilder, and she talked about how she had some kidney trouble on creatine, but she's like, probably 100 pounds away. She's a tiny little thing.
That's like
and she was taking,
really.
the full dosage. It's like, you probably don't need that.
What was
she's
it?
gonna get,
Machine, like,
probably like 5 grams per day at least, or more. I forget what exactly she's taking. But yeah, the
the
minimum.
usual for women is like 5, like, if it's like a guy that's not smaller, like 10, 5 before and after.
If you're having issues, you take a little less. If you're not getting enough benefit out of it, your body is definitely getting more. Just your health kidney, actually. I used to really just focus on for how strength athlete, but recently it's more evident out there that whole part of myself that we're trying to offset the muscle loss as we age. Creatine is very important, particularly in ways that cannot eat enough protein. So creatine can be very beneficial there. Anybody who is vegan needs to do creatine. Absolutely. But there's a lot of evidence about that young people should be. There's a study, I think it's about 6% of the population are deficient in creatine. And that's like 1 gram per day is recommended. So deficient in creatine, your muscles obviously aren't getting enough creatine to develop and to function properly. About 15% of creatine goes into the brain. And so for young children who develop in the brain, so everybody under the age of 25, they're going to benefit cognitively and just in brain development. And who knows if that's going to possibly benefit, you getting older and Alzheimer's and some of those things by taking some creatine. And so if a parent asks me, should I take you on creatine? Sure. Unless they have kidney issues, the regular supplementation of creatine is going to be beneficial. And there's also, of those people who are deficient, I think there was a pretty large percentage of that population that is depressed. And so there's a link between also depression to lack of creatine. And so as a health thing, creatine is very from a performance standpoint, it's almost a matter of
They went there on my parents are being reading on the corner. Then the other story. I think my grandmother's all eating nutritionist. She really takes one of Evans and all she used to eat me. That was like my introduction. Everybody was a fellow. My first time, not first time, 1,000 times, but I was in McDonald's drive-thru when I was a little kid. And my grandma asked me what I want. I said nothing. She said, why? I said, because I'm fat. And then she looked back, she said, not fat, it has high protein. And you that was like my relationship with food. But she started making when I was like 4 years old. She started putting creatine in. I was never taught to like sport or fitness. Like I don't know why she did this, but I just started getting creatine when I was like 12. So but also at 12, I'm like a 6 foot, 240 pound person. So it's a little different. Yeah.
Something I ran into a lot. We don't need a loading phase of creatine, right? I'm gonna load creatine. I need to load creatine. You just start out on a basic.
It was something. Somebody's wanting you to use more. And maybe there was some data around
There was some initially, they studies, but then the exercise science research, they kind of take with a grain of salt, because it's coming out of the academics and not necessarily practicality and sort of study how they set it up. That's really fun. They don't go studies. Eventually, spending on creative studies. That doesn't matter when you take it and how often how the cycle. And that just I just do like 5 grams a day and then I really should do.
Because I keep it in for basically every client. Like I have, a variety of trips there. I have like there's the enhanced handlers, like not like bodybuilders, drug. So we've got those athletes, and then you've got all natural, and a lot of those folks in post and everything kind of become stable for everybody. Supplements we can talk about them as long as other supplements.
I think whey protein, BC protein,
So we really call that a supplement because to me, food. I get it; it's a supplement, but like I'm also like food on that side.
kind of on that break, it's a ideal, with the exception of kind of around the workout where whey proteins get in your system fast. There's I think it's something to put that work in trigger that protein synthesis in the muscle. I think whey is a supplement in that regard, but it's also food. So we can't get a good quality whole protein on a regular basis. For me, my teaching skill is
Would you like to read? Would you like chicks?
I do appreciate these and they just pull while and classes because I can't sit down. I can't eat in front of my students. They and and I allow it because I know these are athletes. They should be getting their protein and need to eat their meals regularly. But like Dr. H.
I have a guy, he died. I can't even say any bad thing about him now. He would kick us out of the class, and I had a bodybuilder buddy who would just flat out leave class in the middle of like serious stuff. Like it's our last course of graduating. He would just sit in the hallway. Steve Better, I remember him. He would just go outside and eat.
So the whey protein, and casein protein for kind of an evening, slow absorbing through the night. I'm not a fan of casein because it's not the taste, the texture. It's not so much stand. It's kind of I don't know how to describe it. Just this kind of puffy kind of texture. It's not for me. I don't really do casein protein, but it's got pretty good evidence that it would be a useful supplement. And then you got caffeine as opposed to full on.
How many of you guys do pre-workout? Any pre-workout junkies in here? Yeah, I know you pack your bags. That's what I was thinking about. Have you ever looked at how much caffeine is in your pre-workout?
You sell pre-workout.
I know. So here's the thing. I used to get pre-workout by caffeine, and it was because I had a crazy sleep schedule. I was training at a high level, and I had to block the adenosine somehow and trick my body into thinking it wasn't tired. So that was that time. And I even gave that advice to you the other day. It's him being a guy who works for me, and I'm driving him like a slave, and he's got a baby and a wife to take care of. He's got to train on a very limited amount of sleep. How do you do that? Get yourself cranked out on a little bit of caffeine.
So a little bit of caffeine is going to get you charged up. It's going to help supplement.
What about that milligram amount? Like anybody know how much is in there? It's like, if you have some R's, 300, 400 milligrams are in some of the serving. Jesus, max.
I think a cup of coffee is what, 100, 200 milligrams?
Yeah, whatever.
This is kind of and then a digital supplement around the training to get carbs quickly in the system. And then my fixed on and I think about it. And I think I currently have to first thing in the morning, it's the only way my schedule can be done. And it gets in my system a little bit faster, kicks on the protein synthesis a little bit better.
When you're waking up with kind of moderately low blood sugar without much in the system. So, kind of for them, so we're making this really simple. So, Gatorade, you guys have seen Gatorade, I don't know if that's 50, 60 years ago. They invented over the University of Miami or Florida. And so they give guys Gatorade, and all of a sudden, when they invented Gatorade, the first thing they ever used it went to national championship. And the reason is because
halfway through, a game or the workout, the body runs out of fuel. And so Gatorade is pretty simple. It's just sugar. And so we have some products that are a little bit different, like Cyclodextrose, which is the fasting that the carb does well during the workout. But if you haven't done something to play with having a little bit of carbs during the workout, that's a really, really easy thing to do, because the thing is that those calories aren't going anywhere other than right into the training. And so for me, working with bodybuilders and strength athletes, one of the easiest things I can do is just throw a little bit of intra-carb in there. As I'm dieting people down, I start to pull the carbs out a little bit, and those carbs will go down a little bit lower. But one of the cool things, and I had done research on this like 15 years ago in college, was branched-chain amino acids. We got valine, isoleucine, give me a couple. Leucine, isoleucine, valine. Yeah. Anyways, there's amino acids.
Leucine's the most important.
And so when you don't have carbohydrates, so you don't have enough blood sugar, you don't have enough carbs in the body, you go ahead and throw amino acids in there, your body has a tendency to use that as fuel. So as somebody who's like dieting, bodybuilders, that said for muscle weight, like just a little bit, or for certain strength athletes, a lot of benefit on a high level. Example, him creating fats and give him something to work on. Research shows the body can somewhat do something that doesn't last for energy. So that's kind of interesting there.
Also, too, so you're more likely to be able to draw on other energy sources that are available without really sacrificing, breaking down your muscle proteins.
Yeah. So take a couple of these so we keep it on schedule, and that way we end on time. You guys, okay, we got 2 topics to explore a little bit on training. We can dive into a little bit of like, let's call it hypertrophy or toning, and basically how do I get my muscle to respond and look a certain way, or we can go down the athlete side of it a little bit. And this applies for everybody. We can talk a little bit more about like strength. So strength or hypertrophy? Pick one. You want strength? Raise your hand. Hypertrophy. Yeah, say that's hypertrophy. Everybody's else. All right, sexy muscles. That's what we're going to present on. Okay, so for people that maybe aren't consumed with strength, or they have a foundation of strength training, and here's the thing, the answer that you're going to get in the strength training thing is that your foundation of movement should be the same exact thing. If you wanted to get strong as hell, or if you wanted to lose weight or be fit or go into like extreme bodybuilding, the movement pattern is the same. And so really the foundation of how you get into these movements, like that should still be the most important thing. It's like getting into and getting comfortable with every movement pattern. And if you want to keep it simple, let's just say horizontal chest press, so some sort of a bench press, a vertical press, a shoulder press, being able to use your scapula, so that's being able to row or do any sort of lat pull down, squat, and then a hinge or a deadlift type of movement. So foundation is going to be the same, but you're going to have a little bit more science that like somewhat not too sciencey for us. What's the best route for gaining muscle? What is my opinion? I get to share that.
Okay, so
You haven't watched this. I've been doing this for 15 years now, and like you don't look different. Like you don't look worse. You're supposed to. It's 15 years. You're supposed to get.
some look worse. I look bad. I don't look any worse. That's kind of, again, the goal of kind of maintenance. It's kind of maintained. Not that hard.
Can't do that without some recovery to that. So that's the coolest thing about hypertrophy training and fitness is that you want to call it frequency of training or total frequency, even if you don't train as many days, you can just do more because again, recovery isn't just about your central nervous system. You're getting into this. Really, recovery is like, okay, can my body handle another workout? My biceps are kind of. What you guys will notice is that as you increase the volume, obviously that's a stimulus, your body adapts and kind of gets used to it. So for me, the thing that I kind of wanted to share about hypertrophy, and this should work for everybody, and even like you as the more advanced guys. So as I coach bodybuilders, I typically see that everybody falls into, even let's just say fitness. Let's say you hired me as your coach, and like I want to be telling them I want to lose weight, here's all the things I want to do. But it would still be to me hypertrophy, which is muscle work. You've got 3 things. You've got somebody who's in beginning hypertrophy, you've got somebody who can be in intermediate, and you've got advanced hypertrophy. So if I said, Tyson, we're doing advanced hypertrophy training. That seems good. Like that's advanced, sorry. Advanced. Not necessarily. Advanced is actually a bad thing. That's where nobody wants to be. Advanced hypertrophy means this. It means you have to do every single thing imaginable. Be so creative with your training, everything you do for very, very minimal results. I have to do all this cool stuff, take after all this fancy stuff to get like fairly slow results. Intermediate is a good spot to be in. Intermediate is I have to train hard, I have to be creative with my program, and I have to use some strategy and tactics, but my body will respond. It does adapt. It's not a difficult thing. And then the best place that you ever want to be is beginning hypertrophy. This is, you go in, and in 3 to 4 weeks, you can see a difference. I started doing arms a little heavier, and 3 or 4 weeks later, and probably where most of you guys are still at is in that phase, which is a great place to be because you still grow. You do a workout and you feel a difference in a fairly short period of time. The easiest thing on what makes the difference between strength and hypertrophy is just going to be volume. Like, let's just say that just means more reps, more sets, and if nothing else, rather than trying to move a weight that connects to a certain muscle group and kind of lets go of certain ones. So if I was going to work with Tate, he's a bodybuilder, I put his body in a position where the muscles that I want to work are working really well, and other muscles aren't working as much to compensate. We go fairly slow, we do a lot of volume. So that is really kind of the foundation of hypertrophy is extra volume, and if nothing else, just a little bit slower contraction style, and a little bit more control on the movement. As you get into intermediate and advanced, and like Jen, I'm kind of throwing this out for you because you've been bodybuilding forever. Yeah, I know there is, you start to have to do things that you wouldn't think you'd have to do. Like I, on leg stuff, have to do 25 and 30 rep sets and drop sets and and things that I never had to do to get way better results when I was younger. And so that's the cool thing about programming hypertrophy is that like kind of knowing what place you're in. Like I would say for you, you're at an intermediate place now where your body still grows in response to simple things, but not as easy, right? You have to be a little bit more creative. You have to kind of figure out a way to raise that bar and stimulate your body just a little bit more. And then the other thing, nothing else, is just training intensity. Like that's a thing that's a moving target for all people in that once you get comfortable with a certain level of intensity or a certain level of pain and you get used to it, your body adapts, you'll notice, oh, a little bit of time goes by, I have to have, a little bit more pain and a little bit more tolerance. I think when you had first started talking to me about how this works with stimulus and adaptation, we used, it was like Lance Armstrong. I think it's like an example or like an elite cyclist. Like this guy has to pedal this long, this hard to do this much. And then to get better, you have to pedal longer, harder, whatever. So any recommendations on, people as they kind of go through that beginning, intermediate, and advanced cycle of things, as I call it?
I think a lot of it is going to depend on your adaptability, for one thing.
Yeah.
A number of years ago, a student asked me, how do you respond to, I was doing personal training, she said, how do you respond to a woman who said, I don't want to lift weights because I don't want to get big bulky muscles.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how much you not willing to put the work in? And I've never responded that way before to it, but it just, I was in a weird mood that day after my response, and then when I thought about it, that's the correct response because bodybuilders have to work their asses off to put those muscles on. And if you are that person who just goes to the gym and pick up a dumbbell until your muscle grows and you don't want it to grow, you're in a great position because you don't have to do as much. Just do less. But for most people, and that's men and women, so anybody thinks that bodybuilding is easy, either has really, really phenomenal genetics and is heavily juiced, or they're delusional. Because it takes a lot of work. And so I think you got to kind of go back to what are your goals and what are you trying to accomplish? Why are you trying to put the muscle on? If you're a bodybuilder, it's a very different approach than somebody like myself who's 60, no chance of being a bodybuilder, but wants to build as much muscle mass as I can so that I can, age effectively and hopefully not look any different now. But I don't have to train quite as hard. I just have to give enough stimulus to maintain the muscle. And so really look at your goals and how much are you willing to contribute to those goals, and then you're going to plan your training.
Yeah, for me, I have this kind of hybrid training style now where my background is first as a strength athlete and powerlifter, and then I got into bodybuilding, and that's what I spend the majority of my time doing is coaching.
higher level bodybuilder. So I have kind of a hybrid training that works for me. It's like, it's my anti-aging fitness, and I'm like, I still want to kind of like, maybe I kind of want to look decent for a while. And I have several like large, let's call them strength movements, squat, bench, deadlift, things like that. But I do quite a bit of control. I do a lot of volume, I do a lot of drop sets, and then I have a lot of specific isolation exercises to crank out bodybuilding. And then, the corniest thing for me now, being a guy that used to never do any cardio, is now I do cardio every day. For me, it was more of like a preventative heart health thing. As a big guy, I don't know how many 6'4", 300-pound, 85-year-old guys you've seen. That's not a lot. So I was like, well, as a big dog, they don't last for long. I should probably start doing that. So I kind of started to combine all of it together, and that's where it's worked out really well for me. I think that's just kind of to say that each of your guys' training style, fitness lifestyle should look a little bit different. First, you should enjoy it. Everybody here is a lifter, so I know you guys love to lift, like to be in the living room, and I think that's the most important thing. And then from there, like my list is not that I want to do cardio. I want to do corrective exercise, it's boring, and I'm doing weird clamshell exercises and bands and rehab stuff. So I want to see that. Yeah, right. But it should really be varied, and that's the thing is that like as you go through the cycle of things, get more into the rabbit hole of fitness and training, and you just have to continue to individualize all of it. I think that's probably a good place to stop, where I can just open it up to individual questions, because whether it's something super specific, supplements, diet, anything like that, I want to make sure that everybody engages with something that's more individualized. So ask questions, and I'm going to point at you first, and then where if you feel it's appropriate, point at me, and all that stuff. Tyson.
So when you're looking for supplements like creatine, you're shopping around. How do you differ what's good and what's not? Second,
That's a good question. I think in many ways they are all the same. Creatine is one something that's going to be
That's learning.
and cheap.
Yeah.
The better products.
Like creatine monohydrate, $20, 25, well, it used to be 20, it's like 25, $30, lasts you 30 to 60 days. That works great. Yeah, of course, that's what I have.
I figured you'd
Give me 25
There's some little bit of difference in there. You got the micronized creatine, creatine monohydrate. Yeah, so it should be micronized so that it absorbs better. Creatine monohydrate is good. There's differing kind of opinions on hyperchloride. I actually like the taste of hyperchloride better. It's a little bit more bitter, so it's good tasting, but it masked out with some kind of more of the, some other flavoring. But it absorbs better, so it doesn't give you that grittiness that the monohydrate does. But if it's more expensive, I'm going to go monohydrate. I'm going to get the same basic thing out of it. And if there is a difference, it's so small that my Scottish blood kicks in, and then if it's cheap, then spend extra money for something that things like whey protein, I go for taste and cost on that as well. They all taste differently. So what tastes best for you and what's going to be the most effective. Most all those whey supplements are coming from the same place. Some warehouse somewhere with piles and piles of whey protein that's extracted from dairy, and they sell it to these people that add in their proprietary blend and self-made. Now you can get into a little bit more nuances in terms of the quality of whey protein.
That's where I'm probably in third. I'm picking to be honest, if anything, and for me, that's just knowing that, something you shouldn't have to. If you look on the back of a scoop of protein that says the serving size is 50 grams, and that in there's 24 grams of protein, it means there's 26 grams of bullshit in the protein. If you look on, let's say, a 30-gram scoop, and it's 25 grams of protein, that means there's only 5 grams of, them getting something to make it taste like chocolate, like some sort of additive, some amino acid, glutamine that's in there. I can live with that. For you being a guy who's doing, how do I find this stuff? Is I go for mainstream brands. If it's whey, I go for whey isolate, not whey concentrate. It's just, it doesn't have lactose usually, and it's a little more digestible. It doesn't clump up as much. That was the thing that put me on the whey isolate versus concentrate, was that the protein just didn't taste the shit and it didn't clump up. But yeah, quick Google review.
Consider
there's a hybridized wave.
Realize this highest quality. Nobody, it's super expensive, like it's cool to have it, but nobody needs it.
Repeat the no lactose.
You would want a whey isolate. Usually they've taken the lactose out of that versus whey concentrate. So like for women, I mostly have like all my female clients, like even guys too, like I said, I can't get an isolate. Tends to digest better, especially, either my guys are having so much of that shake that the digestion is noticeable. For girls that are a little bit more sensitive, so whey isolate's going to do a little better. And we always grab our protein at Costco. And I noticed that like every girl that grabbed her protein at Costco kind of just didn't like it because it was a whey concentrate or a blend. And blends are basically where they put 5 or 6 types of protein in a supplement. And it's several cheaper types, and they put the most expensive one as the least used ingredient, and they sell it to you as this like kind of packaged whey blend. I really try to avoid that. Let's see. Question? Any other? Yeah, she got it.
At what point do I need to supplement?
I think
Just
that
started again, is I go 3 days a week, and other activities outside of the 3 days, and I don't know if I really need to be.
if I was going to say, so for me, if you looked at like my personal vitamin stack, I have a bunch of stuff that I put in that's really individual to me. Some of it's for joint pain, some of it's for inflammation, some of it's for digestion and gut health. There's stuff that's for anti-aging, things that I'm nerding out on, like resveratrol and other cool things that I've added in. I got down to the rabbit hole of David Sinclair, this epigenetic anti-aging guy, so I take every supplement in his personal stack. That sort of stuff, I think, is just like your wellness stack. It's like a human being with an iPhone and a screen having navigate all this madness with us. I would
I
always,
take all of it.
keep all of that stuff as far as anything around the workout. I mean, really for you, like food is probably fine if there was an essential supplement, or not even essential, but like what's valuable, especially working out 3 days a week, get back into it. Protein shake's not gonna hurt. It's just gonna help with better recovery. You're gonna be less sore. You'll be less likely to that first few weeks is the hardest. So I think like that's where when I get somebody, I throw a shake at them. But that's about it. What's that?
Not literally.
You're right. You train me. I probably put something at you. Yeah. See, they don't remember.
Creatine, that sounds like something that everyone would recommend.
Yeah, especially when you take that jump of like, okay, I got my 3-day structure, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you start getting into like 4 and 5 days a week. I think that's when it's going to have a pretty big benefit. But also age, female, it wouldn't be a bad thing there for you on kind of how he's saying, keeping the muscle and sort of anti-aging benefits. So the cool thing about it is creatine so cheap, you can just have it in and see if you like it. It'll last you forever. But the thing is, he talked about other supplement benefits. You get a benefit probably out of taking it every day, and then you're still going to train 3 days a week, be active, doing other things. I'm kind of, for a guy that used to own a big supplement store, I'm not a huge supplement guy. I'm kind of like you, where for me it's creatine, carbs during the workout, I like amino acids, I love protein shakes, and a little bit of caffeine, but not much. And that kind of puts me where I need to be. I don't need much else. I'm actually leaning way more on like the vitamins, nutrition supplements now than ever before. I know you can get it from food, some of the stuff you can't get from food, and so that's kind of my irreplaceable one. I actually drink less shakes now too than I used to. But those are my recommendation. You got anything for that?
I mean, anything, probably additional that I add in that consume is the powder greens.
Yeah.
That's the, again, a little extra, because again, I'm not eating vegetables throughout the day. I would take a multivitamin. I don't necessarily do that. The multivitamin would be good. Just a little bit extra kind of powder and nutrition might give you some of the stuff you might be missing in the diet.
I got like 30 pills a day. It's ridiculous. I know. It's awful. I think like half of them are like horse size, like that's like American curcumin for inflammation. So
I don't think I really had to do vitamin D.
yeah, and you guys meet in the Northwest, like they say, this is just like a thing I pulled out of a research thing was you got 5,000 IUs a day is your vitamin D dosage. There's some great antidepressant qualities, about 2,000 IUs a day. It's super cheap. I started doing it a couple of years ago. And I feel like I noticed the benefit to that, like as far as just like get a whole lot of sunlight, not up like first thing in the morning, not first thing in the morning, but if you don't go outside within like, X minutes and you're not getting light cycles and cool circadian rhythms, the vitamin D can help a little little bit, so I put that in there just for you guys. I'm just thinking about that because I love giving that as a recommendation to clients as kind of an initial antidepressant. Say, hey, where's your vitamin D? Tell me if you feel better. And they usually do.
Question, like, if you're serious enough to tracking your macros, what kind of variables should you look at ratio?
I keep it as simple as possible. Protein, 1 gram per pound body weight, which is divided across your meals. More than sufficient. Much more than that, maybe if you're really, really training intensely and bodybuilding, that's maybe a little bit more, much more than that. It's easy to learn. Some everybody lives more. Your weight, one, divide by meals, and carbohydrates is probably the thing I fluctuate the most. It depends more on
A day-to-day thing for you based on like, what you're doing.
yeah,
how you're
what
training.
I'm doing and when I'm training. So there are like higher carbs in and around the workout and much lower carbs through the rest of the day. My body doesn't do super great with carbs. It seems to convert much easier to fat. I think as I age, a lot of that has to do with my cortisol levels. I'm trying to study that a little bit more and try to in theory better. If I'm going to have carbs, like most of those carbs, most active. If I'm least active, weekends I'm a little bit less active, less carbohydrates. But you know, you can pretty much go if you're inactive, about 0.5 grams per day. Normal activity, about 1 gram per day. A little bit more, 1.5 grams per, this is per pound per day.
Like for you, like for your body types, like what do you like? You got 220 grams of carbs, and I've got like stuff that starts to like nosedive. Well, like yeah, exactly.
More fats than I don't like. And then all these calories, the what ratio should keep everything the same ratio. And then like, I said all specifically for me, it's just like, there's a lot of variables.
Yeah. So if you're very, very active, I think 2 grams to 2.5 grams per day, if your body is tolerating and you're not converting that into fat, you're pretty good. If you're finding that it's going fat rather than muscle, you know, tune it back a little bit or manage it within the day so that you have greater bulk of it being good. And in fact, just kind of fills in the holes for your workouts. It's really good way to be for get out of the workout, right? And so we're quarterback plus and maintaining a motivation and you get X amount of protein, even amount of carbohydrate, so have the amount of carbohydrate per calorie and you have to be fat. But typically they say about 0.3%, about 30% of your calories should be from quality fats. I think it's just a little bit harder to manage.
I think like, so again, like bodybuilding space, and like kind of something I do similar with like females as well as guys. So I have ranges and thresholds where I think somebody's going to do well at. Like what I've typically seen, like if you just wanted some really generic rules, that obviously there's individuals that don't fit these rules, but like 95+% of everybody we've ever worked with does. Most women, depending on the female, can do anywhere from like 20 to 25 grams of protein. They can digest that pretty well. You start to get like outside of that, like 30 grams. Like I have a client who's a pro bodybuilder. She's not a very big gal. She's pretty thin, and she can have like about 40 grams of protein a meal. She has about 240 grams a day, and it's her natural appetite. She digests it very well. She's very fit. So clearly, if she didn't use it or she couldn't digest it, she'd have to eat less. And so mostly on the guy's side, like most of my men do pretty well anywhere from like low end to like 40. Like if it's a guy, like they're gonna usually be able to handle around 40 grams of protein. And for as an example, that's probably around 5.5, 6 ounces like cooked meat is kind of around there, depending on what meat you're using. My principle is always pretty simple. I figure out how much protein somebody digests well absorbing, and then I have basic numbers like, let's say you're a client, I'd say super simple cheap copy, 6 ounces of protein in all of these. And if you digest it, you're limited I think my next meal. All of those little kind of like I keep that you eat more and eat less. The protein to me, I keep it in quotation. I calculate that on grams like pound of body weight per pound of muscle. I keep it a little simpler. They can digest more than I used to. I kind of also know, based on your side, I know you kind of right on a smart amount. 40, 40, 20 is always a really easy one protein that probably heard everywhere. The thing that I would say that you probably want to know, everybody does, is like, okay, fats. Like this is, whether it's animal fat that comes from beef with whole eggs or salmon, or it's fat from peanut butter, avocado oil, nuts, things like that. Personally, as a performance coach, but also as a bodybuilding coach, I find that people do well by having fats around their energy needs. For me, that is before I train, and that's also first thing in the morning. Your body has a great ability, kind of first thing, to digest and absorb nutrition just a little bit better in the morning. Like I tend to bump protein a little higher in the morning. That's when I'm giving them carbs, fats, and protein. And then, before you train. And what's cool about having fats, and same thing as I mentioned carbs during the workouts, is these calories sort of disappear. It's not like your body has a chance to store them. If you have a little bit of peanut butter, a shake before you work out and have carbs, like your energy is just going to be sustained throughout the workout. You're going to go carbs. But let's say at 10 o'clock at night, you go and have, a bunch of controversial oil today, you can't have those things. It's good, right? Go to bed. You can have a rate higher. You do anything like before bed or while you're sleeping, not late. But also, I guys all over the they take something, overnight, kind of hold volume a little bit. So for me, it's always fairly cool among all meals. Most athletes, 5 meals a day. That shakes, not consider shakes a meal, food service. What I do with carbs is fairly similar. I mostly, he mentioned he likes to do this. I this person, I do it really for clients and athletes. He likes to have carbs around when he's active, when he's slower a day, around his activity. With people an athlete, I keep the carbs really consistent throughout the day. And what this does is, let's say you make a really low blood sugar. You get a certain amount of carbohydrates. So if these are their meals, their blood sugar staying fairly stable. Yeah, it's dropping off by the time you get to the next meal, but they have fairly stable blood sugar and insulin production throughout the day. They don't have these moments of really high blood sugar, but also where they're going to store more calories. And so that for me has kind of been how I, slowly bump somebody's carbs up over time. And then for you, if I have you as a bodybuilder, I give you a certain amount of food and be fairly even. And then we get to the place where now I can say, hey, have a little bit more carbs in the morning, when you first wake up, before your workout, after your workout, and during. These are windows that I know I can get food to disappear into. But if you have a slow metabolism, I might not want to add all that food in until I get your baseline up. I noticed a lot of people I'm a nighttime guy, so I eat a lot of calories at night. If I do anything at night? No. Where do I store fat? At night. And so for me, it's fats around energy needs. That's in the morning before workouts. As your metabolism gets faster, you'll be able to add in fats to other meals. You'll be able to, instead of just in the morning before your workout, it'll be, you have avocado with a meal 2 or 3. You might have a little bit of fat with all your meals. And really what he said is like, target fat, not using the food, that's where you taper it down. Or, say I'm your coach and we say, hey, it's okay, we're getting a little bit fatter this time of year, we're really trying to put on muscle, we're happy with how you're growing, we can live with a little bit of belly fat right now while this is going on, and we'll clean it up in the spring. It's just another 12 weeks, So nutrition's pretty dynamic. It's a moving target for things. But for me, protein is always high. And how I kind of fine tune that is really just based on digestion. All my clients have to take a probiotic, some sort of digestive enzyme. They all tell me if they're bloated, they're gassy, or what's going on. I talk to a lot of people about food. That's one of the benefits of chocolate. Which is, but, apples, anybody else? What you got?
My question is kind of the best, set amounts of phrases. Like when I first started to work, my first three sets, well, reps, the second one, yeah, but abs, I don't know, percent. And one of them sets actually like 8 reps, really 8. And then all of a sudden, like squats, I'm adding like a set, like a weight, 20 reps. For is there a sweet spot, or is there something that should work, or something that or they're like better than other?
Right? Which does.
The 20 rep days give you a certain amount of conditioning overall, like ability to work and train at a high level. So that's one thing there. you are kind of in the beginning stages of things. So the fact that you're playing with some strength movements in a 6 to 8 rep range, which is going to be heavy. You can pick up a weight like only 6 to 8 times. It's pretty heavy weight. So that's you kind of getting a foundation of strength, which I think is good. And yeah, I mean, I think that range of like 10 to 12 is a safe place where you can get strong, you can get muscle. I mean, there's a lot that can happen in there. For me, most every exercise is at least 4 sets because I use what's called progressive sets or priming sets. And that means, and you might not, you'll see me in there because I work out at the same time as most of you guys. And like probably half the time you see me, I'm playing with a lighter weight. What I'm doing is, let's say it's a dumbbell bench press. I start off at it's like a 15, 20 pound dumbbell. I'm doing my thing. This is for me just like a neurological motor thing. I'm just priming my body with movement pattern. And then I jump up 10 to 15 pounds at a time from there, and I get to my loaded sets. For me, most exercises, especially big exercises, I'm probably slowly working my way up to doing 1 or 2 what I would call peak or performance sets, and that's where it's like it's all out. I mean, if I was a coach and I wrote 4 sets of 10, and you could do 100-pound dumbbells for sets of 10, you've got 4 sets, you wouldn't be able to train that way for very long until shit would start to break. And so, really, each exercise you want to big sets. Call it 1 set that's hard. 1 set is that's really hard. So I think you can do some volume. The 20 reps is not a bad thing. I think after you'll probably hear about on all our programs. The next step for me, you're gonna find a program online by hopefully a strength coach or somebody who makes a style of what you want to do, or reaches where you can go with this. And you start following that program, and then you'll learn that. I've been following different programs for the past 20 years. I can't imagine how many you've experienced. You know research. So I mean, I'm nerd on the science side. He wrote the article that I got the science from, right? So you're going to learn that program what you liked and what you didn't like about it. I didn't like that it didn't do enough of this. I didn't like that it was the same thing over and over and over. And for me, that's where most progress goes to die. And that's where Tate's my athlete, but he's doing a block of training from one of my other coaches, which is why he's not growing. So when you see him, tell him he's not growing. But he's doing the same thing over and over. The variety of stimulus, I train the same schedule. Every Monday's a push day, every Tuesday's a leg day, back and biceps, I take a rest day, I do a second push day of chest and shoulders and triceps, I do another back and bicep day with some deadlifts. The biggest thing is that I vary the movements, the reps, the sets. It's not like I do sets of 21 week and then 1 week I'm maxing out. There is a consistency to my rep ranges, but the biggest thing is going to be variety of exercise for all of you guys. If nothing else, if you follow this is the difference between a training philosophy and a program. A program says bench press 3 sets of 8, incline fly 3 sets of 12. It's really specific. And usually a lot of coaches, younger coaches, the newer coaches, don't change a whole lot. For me, I won't let anybody do anything more than about 2 weeks in a row before I have to change something. It's not like I'm totally flipping them, but there's something that I've changed about their training style. But I think you're in a fun place. Your body's it's been a pretty good year for us. I've watched you gotten in good shape. Now you're just ready for a more regimented program. Even you were doing it on your own. You're going a little heavier. You're doing 20 rep sets that punish your legs and are doing some cool stuff. So no, there's no sweet spot. There's no sweet spot. Most of what I'm doing is I can mostly at 15, 20 rep sets on everything. I hardly touch anything under a set of 10. So I think it's cool.
Yeah, I think just vary things. You want to have a period of time to be able to progress and grow from that. You kind of move from what's going to be more minimum effective volume to what you can't quite recover from.
Yeah.
Taper off from that, deload, try something else. But there's so many different reps schemes you can do out there. 5x5 is a really great basic program. 5 sets of 3, 3 sets of 5, or for hypertrophy, getting into higher repetitions. I do stuff where for the smaller muscles, just more excessive. I'll do variations of 100 repetitions where it's 40, 30, 20, 10, or higher volume sets, but a little less weight. I'll vary. Sometimes I'll do a program like you do, where you progress it up, progressive sets, go to a heavy set for strength, and then drop back maybe 40 pounds, something like a squat, and then just do as many reps as possible. And that might crank out like 17 reps in that particular set. And so I get kind of hypertrophy, but I'm also pushing the strength. So it's just kind of varying the program over time. Your body never fully adapts to it. It's going to benefit from the strength can be carried over to hypertrophy, vice versa. Varying the tempo. You can do the same exercise every workout, but just vary how you do it. It's going to have dramatic. I just think that pretty much you mentioned 5 exercises, 5 movements earlier. I call them basic 5. Squat movement, hinge movements like a deadlift or RDLs, bench movement, horizontal press, vertical press, and
Pull something.
Yeah, some kind of pull exercise, and then maybe some carriage or something like that, for a bit more athleticism, more core work. But those basic movements, you can do almost the same exercise every time, but you're doing that movement a little bit differently in terms of how fast you're doing the repetitions, how many repetitions you're doing. Like my athletes are like sometimes I do a lot of exercise squats with the rest of us because I think it's such a great movement for athleticism. And they can't back squat very well. But we might do 4 seconds down, pause at the bottom, and then we slow it out. We do 2 seconds down, bounce it at the bottom to get more explosive coming out. We might go slow down, pause, and go relatively slow coming up. And so that in itself is giving them different signals for the muscle. But then you start throwing in more reps, lower reps, what percentage of max on how much you're kind of leaving in the tank with each set. All of that works towards.
I think, again, for everybody, really the easiest thing is to go through some good programming and go and follow something that you like. And finishing like, all right, 12 weeks, that was cool. I learned that I like this style or I like this thing about it. But I've just gone through so many of those that I now have a coach I put together. Like, this is my proprietary blend of what I think people like while I'm a coach. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes. So I think I can see off-season training, just like you, recovery is a big thing for a lot of people. I think that, and Cody and I think Seth are probably better at this because they're really experienced in this. I think that you obviously as an athlete, and this thing you have a certain number of things that you need to accomplish in your training. You need a certain amount of power and speed, and you need a certain amount of endurance or condition to go with it. So as you get into the season, I think it'll kind of be different. Your off-season training, you're probably going to be doing like fast stuff anywhere from maybe 2 to 3 times a week, depending on the person that can kind of recover from it.
Volume, so it depends on the volume.
Yeah, because let's say a little bit of jumping one day, like I can do a little bit of jumping 5 days, or I can do a lot of jumping like once or twice. That's kind of almost like getting a chest and shoulder day, like depending on, you've got Olympic lifters who train full body 5 days a week, and then you've got a bodybuilder who trains chest once every 7 days, And so I don't know if there's like a perfect answer for that, but I just think about for you is like, you're kind of supposed to always have a coach or somebody's format that you're following. And as you know, as we're talking about flexibility, what happens every year? You get faster, you get stronger, and more athletic, you've got more tissue, time for faster distances longer, So whatever you're doing is working.
Yeah, if it's working, you're fine. I mean, you can always add a little bit more, and it causes you not to improve performance. Your performance drops off, and you know that's too much. You back off. I think the important thing with applying metrics is when you do it. Too many people will do it like at the end of the work. Like a lot of coaches say, okay, we finish up our runs and everything, let's do some plyometrics. Your body's fatigued, you're not going to get anything really out of it. I tend to do plyometrics first thing in the morning. After a dynamic warm up, do some deep plyometric drills. They just hop early on one foot, forward on one foot, go back to the middle, kind of end on TV. Just working on maybe we'll stop the steps. And so the different kind of activity, I don't know the basic. It's not moving. It's always first regulate strength, and that built to distract. There are some programs where you could fly those between some exercises that's supposed to help potentiate some of the exercise. So you squat and then do some lateral jumps or something like that. They tend to potentiate each other, and that can help with explosiveness. I don't think there's any really prescribed perfect plyometric plan. Nobody's really done the level of research that would say that this is the absolute or this is too much.
Kind of broad, like everybody's tried something and it all kind of works.
Yeah, and so
Everything you're doing is working, right?
yeah, figure it out. And if you see another drill that looks interesting, does it appear to have good transference to whatever, then it makes sense to do it. If it seems to help, then keep doing it. If it doesn't help, then try something else. So there's a variety in there, it can also firing explosively, multi-directionality, and different fashion.
That did cover it well? Okay, awesome.
I think 40 years.
Well, Dr. Armstrong, appreciate you being here. For any of you guys that want to check out his podcast, where can they check that out?
It's just, I mean, you can get it. Apple, wherever you get your podcasts, just look up the Aging Well podcast. And we'll have this aired, and I think it comes up in maybe a couple of weeks or something like that. We're starting to finally get it back up. And having recorded things and scheduling. We download most of them on Sundays. We're starting to do interviews on Sundays. And this will come up on Thursday. So give it like a couple weeks. Yeah, so you can find a podcast and go find topics. Something like
Read the title. That's where I found my best ones of yours. Is like I just go to title and church and I think that. Awesome. Well, thank you guys. Thank you for Armstrong. If you guys have any questions, think I can ask anything, personalized. Thank you guys.
Thank you for listening. I hope you benefited from today's podcast, and until next time, keep aging well.